Good afternoon and happy warm Wednesday, week 7 Wednesday for the Prep Football Huddle. This is Jeff Linder, got KJ and Hercules, and I've got JJ over on the other end in the hat. So welcome to another week. And before we start talking about numbers and RPI and standings and all that stuff, playoffs, we'll kind of revisit last week, week 7. I guess I'll go ahead and lead off. Not a whole lot to say. I was at Iowa City West for Trojans stomping of Cedar Rapids Jefferson 48-6. Jefferson scored the first touchdown, and then it was kind of the Jack Wallace and Friends show. Not Friends with Ross and Rachel and all those millionaires, but yeah, Jack Wallace set a West single game school record with 6 touchdowns, and it was pretty to watch unless you were wearing Columbia blue. It was he and they really picked Jefferson apart through the air. So that's about all there is to say about mine. KJ, how about you?
Well, I'll just mention, Jefferson, that 4-0 start, we just kind of, you kind of wonder, all right, is that a really good 4-0 or is that just kind of based off who they've played? We knew that this part of the season would really kind of be a true gauge of where they're at. And right now, they dropped a competitive game to Cedar Rapids, Washington, and then the blowout loss. We'll see how they can rebound. I was at Iowa City for a rivalry game, Regina and West Branch, and it ended up being 28-10 Regina, but it didn't feel like it was that big of a blowout until late. Through the first half, up until like the last 13 seconds, West Branch even had the lead, but it was a trick play right before half. Like I said, 13 seconds left. They do a pass back to the quarterback, and Kyle Tracy pulls in a touchdown pass from Drew Grieve and goes 43 yards, something they implemented on Tuesday. So 3 days later, they're using that as a key momentum switch right before half. Kind of a neat little deal where they threw in that wrinkle during the week preparation, and it paid off like gangbusters. That throw across the field, both throws were right on target pretty much. When Tracy was able to get the ball back, the right side of the field was wide open except for a wall that his offensive lineman had formed. And then when he got past the wall, he just kind of split 2 defenders in for a touchdown. And at the time, West Branch was up 10-7. Regina scored the first touchdown, and then West Branch defense, which actually did play pretty well for a lot of the game, forced the safety, had Regina backed up to the 2, and snap for the punter went out of bounds. Then they scored. I think Rios hit Brandon Peterson for a touchdown pass, and then they converted the 2-point conversion. But once Regina got that touchdown right before half, it was all Regina after that. The third quarter, guys, I tell you, Regina got the ball first. They put together a drive where they melted like 5 or 6 minutes off the clock. And they still end up having a punt. The punt was muffed by West Branch, and Regina recovered again. So I think out of the third quarter, it was like a 4-1 ratio in plays in favor of Regina. And when you're behind, you can't have something like that. And the third and fourth quarter, all Regina, they're undefeated. I know they've got some big games coming up. They've got Beckman this week. I think Wilton's looming here as well. So A big win, a hard-fought win, really, for the most part. That was the first time since 2021 that they had beaten West Branch. They lost the last two, so that was something that was really big. And one thing I thought was really cool, and it's a tradition that Dustin Ellsbury has started at Regina, that was Mother's Night. So after the game, mothers lined up across the goal line for the players and even the coaches. Coach Ellsbury's mom was there as well, something that they used to do at his high school when he played in Illinois. They kind of honored the parents. They had a Father's Night earlier in the season, but after they broke their huddle, all the players went to thank their moms and give hugs and all that kind of stuff. And it was pretty special. So thought that was kind of a cool little tradition that they're starting there at Regina. And of course, it looked like all the mothers loved it and the players. As Drew Grief said afterwards, our parents, they do everything so we can play, and they sacrifice, and they're our biggest supporters. So it's neat to kind of be able to celebrate with them and kind of show some appreciation after the game. So
I thought maybe you were going to say they lined all the mothers up on the goal line and they had to run all the way down to the other goal line. That would have been sweet.
The way they were fired up, I think they could have knocked that out pretty quick. They were pretty excited down there on the goal line. No tackle drills or anything like that. I know there's some youth videos that have that where the mothers take on the sons in the tackling drill, but not the case. It was all love after that win against West Branch.
I guess just real quick, I was out of Kingston, 27-22 Liberty survives Cedar Rapids, Washington. Washington led at halftime, actually, 16-14, and then Liberty really got its offense clicking in the second half, and kind of took over, but Washington obviously was right there until the very end. So it improved Washington team. I think we've talked about that a lot this season, guys, and that's no question about that. Hanging in until the very last play, certainly. And Liberty did what it had to do. It played without its top touchdown scorer, Sutton Kohler, was kind of dinged up, so he sat out that game. And they got a lot of, and Lindy, you saw them, right? I mean, they've got a lot of guys that can make plays, I think, on the outside. And that was what really impressed me. Dallas Miller in particular, I think is a really, really good receiver. And, he broke a couple of plays for him in the passing game. And they've got some weapons, the Lightning do, no question.
Yeah. And they can run it too.
Yeah. Oh, and Drapo's a nice little running back. And again, Kohler was hurt, so he didn't play. So it was pretty much Drapo's game. And, if they can get any sort of defense, I think, and again, Jeff, you've seen them get any sort of defense, they can kind of be a tough out, I think, here down the stretch and maybe in the playoffs.
Agree, because I think they can score. I think they can score in the 20s on just about anybody.
I would say so. And they didn't play real crisp first half. Couple of turnovers, interception. And again, a lot of that crowd goes to Washington, but, second half just weren't to be denied from an offensive standpoint. And, once got ahead on Washington by a couple of scores, it was going to be pretty tough for the Warriors. Yeah. But, again, you guys improved.
You guys have both seen Washington. I have not. What do you point toward their improvement or revival?
KJ, what do you think?
Oh, that's kind of a tough question. They're still only 2-4.
Right. But they've been in every game.
I think they're solid up front. I think they're strong up front on both sides, and they've got some individual playmakers. Wyatt Young on the defensive side, very aggressive and somebody that can get after the quarterback. They've got some good skill players. I think it's Grady McGuire. You know, he's an athletic guy. They've got some hard-nosed runners as well, where they pound the ball and they can really kind of deflate the ball a little bit. Where you just kind of pound the ball for 2 here and then 4 here and then a 5-yard gain here and move the chains and it's just I think it starts up front and then you've kind of got a few playmakers, but you have a scheme that fits. I think your strengths. It's nothing too flashy, nothing too crazy, and it's just hard nosed, kind of traditional smash mouth football. I think.
All right. Any?
JJ? I mean,
What's that, Pilch?
Would you agree?
Oh yeah, for sure. And you mentioned the scheme. It kind of takes time off the clock, right? Kind of shortens the game, which helps. And you're right. Yeah. They're only 2-4, but it's a competitive 2-4. I mean, they've been in every game at least.
Right.
Going to the second half, which is a major improvement. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's much like it, and we said it a million times, but Ed and Miles had changed culture over at Jefferson. I think Eric Addy's doing a similarly good job at Washington so far. So,
okay. All right. Any other closing thoughts on week 6?
Week 7's got a lot better games. More of them. Well, I think we have to talk about Benton and Solon, right?
Right.
Number 1 goes down, and Jeff, you can speak on Benton because you've seen him and you've seen Solon too, right?
Yeah. I've not seen Solon. I will this week. I saw Benton when they beat or they got beat by Mount Vernon 15-13 2 or 3 weeks ago. I came away impressed. They play hard. They're good defensively, and they've got some athletes. And when you've got athletes, you've got a shot. And that district has 4 really good teams in Williamsburg, Benton, Grinnell, and Solon. And I don't think all 4 are going to make the playoffs. Probably 3 of them will, but we'll see how that shakes out. So. Just kind of going through. We'll go through the 4 smaller classes because they're a week ahead, and they've started having some teams clinch playoff spots. 2A3 North Fayette. Excuse me, North Fayette Valley's in.
Can I mention something from last week really quick?
Please.
I think 2 things of note in 4A. Decora's win over Waverly Shell Rock. I think maybe there's some question marks just where Decorah was. I think that 28-7 win over Waverly Shell Rock was, really kind of maybe answered some of those questions where that was a quality 4A win for the Vikings. And then Xavier beating North Scott. Cash Parks comes back, threw for a touchdown, ran for a touchdown, and had a receiving touchdown from Carter Hoffman, who also scored rushing the ball, and they beat North Scott 28-21. So I think if Parks is healthy, Xavier, that really kind of boosts the last half of their season, having him back.
4A is just there's so many, I think, quality. And again, that's something that I think we've hit on earlier this season, but the strength of 4A to me is really impressive. You can make a legit case for a lot of schools. At least I think so. So
I think you can do the same in 3A. I think we all of our good WAMAC teams over here, plus Algona and Spirit Lakes 2A, but we're going to see another showdown in 3A between Williamsburg and Solon this week. So. Yeah, I think between those 2 and West Delaware and Andy, and the team that we don't talk about a lot is Dubuque Wahlert. They play West Delaware this week, and I think Wallert's really good. They beat they got a win over Western Dubuque earlier this year, and I think 3A is full of really good teams, and I don't think there's a I don't think anybody's head and shoulders above the rest.
Agreed.
Going on, teams that have clinched playoff berths, we'll go through it real fast. North Fayette Valley in 2A3. Northeast is in 2A4. 2A5, it's Mid Prairie is clinched a playoff spot. 2A6, PCM, West Marshall are both in. Dyke New Hartford's in 1A3. They had a really impressive win over MFL last week. Grundy Center and Hudson have clinched playoff spots in 1A and 1A4, and South Hardin and Alburnett are probably going to do the same this week. Regina and Wilton have clinched in 1A5. Like we said, Regina plays Beckman this week and then plays Wilton next week. Class A District 3, Nashville Plainfield, North Tama, Wapsie Valley are all in. The whole kit and caboodle's in A4. North Linn-Mac Valley, Starmont, and Bellevue have all clinched, and North Linn and Mac Valley play each other this week, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. Lisbon and Danville are both in A5. Pekin will clinch a spot probably this week. 8-player 3, Don Bosco's in. Edco has clinched a district championship in District 5. Iowa Valley's clinched a district championship, and Waco is also in District 6. And in District 7, by virtue of I think it was 28-24 win over Belle Plaine last week, Montezuma is the district champ there, and Belle Plaine is also in. So, and there will be a lot more of that going on after this week. So, let's take a look here at this week. I've got the capsules done, so I kind of have this week's goodies identified here. We'll go small schools first. We talked about Mac Valley, North Linn. I think JJ, you going out there this week?
Yes, actually. 3-0 and quadruple overtime is my prediction. Because you look, I was doing a little research today, believe it or not. You look at in Class A, the 4 best defenses as far as points allowed per game. Maquoketa Valley's number 1 at 1.7. North Linn is second at 2.0. Then it's Lisbon at 4.5 and Starmont at 6.7. So
wow.
Eastern Iowa teams, or our area teams in Class A, can play some defense. So yeah, I think Jeff, you said double digits wins a game, right? Maybe first team.
I think so.
Digits. Do they get to double digits?
Well, there you go.
Maybe a defensive score.
So
it's going to be 42-38.
Yeah, right, exactly. Always the opposite. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
I'll be at Solon and Williamsburg. Obviously, that's going to be a really good game in Class 3A District 5. Solon coming off the tough loss to Benton. Williamsburg scoring 50 a game, and that combination of Grant Hooker and Race Heitman. I'm sorry, really good passing combo. Looking forward to that, and I think it's going to be at the end of the first quarter. We're going to hand the Athlete of the Year stuff off to Derek Weiskopf.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah. A couple other really good 3A or smaller non-metro teams, non-metro games coming up. Wallert's at West Delaware. I think that's a really big game in 3A District 3. Bellevue and Starmont, will continue to figure out the pecking order there in A4. So, in the area, Regina Beckman, we talked about that a little bit. Regina can't get caught looking ahead before their biggie with Wilton. Ankeny's at Liberty. Davenport North's at City High. Decorah's at Marion. I think you're going to be there on tomorrow, right, KJ?
I'll be at Decorah Marion. Really interested in seeing Decorah live. That's a team that I think has really caught our attention as the season has gone on. They've had some really good results. Louis Buxa is thrown for almost 1,000 yards for the Vikings, which isn't a team you necessarily think about passing game with, right? You think kind of a hard-nosed, run-oriented or even option-oriented offense, but Peter Bucks has thrown for almost 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. Trevor Kennan averages over 5 yards a carry for the Vikings. He's got almost 600 yards so far this season and 4 touchdowns. And then, defensively, you've got Gatlin Dahlberg, leading the way with 37.5 tackles. So the Decorah team is I don't know if Marion really has enough to hang with them, but I'm really interested in seeing Decorah live this week.
All right. Elsewhere, Jefferson's at Prairie, Iowa City West at Wash, Davenport West at Linmar, and that could get ugly in a hurry. Linmar is really good, and West is not. They're one of 2 teams left in 5A. Xavier's at Oskaloosa. That could be one side in a hurry as well. And then Kennedy's up at Dubuque Hempstead on Friday as well. No Thursday night games this week.
To go back to Liberty, that Liberty Aggie game to me is intriguing, boys. Isn't it to you? I mean,
oh sure. Ankeny is a really, really good 3-3.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes back to, do we think that Eastern Iowa's made at least a bit of headway on the suburban Des Moines schools, or is that too early to say anything?
In Eastern Iowa, I think you're talking Bettendorf PV, the Iowa City schools, and that's probably it. Well, Linmar, maybe. We'll see. I think right now, if nothing changes, I think Linmar and Xavier are probably going to be the only 2 Metro teams in the playoffs, aren't they?
Could be,
unless somebody makes a late run.
Meanwhile, there's at least an outside shot that all 4 Iowa City schools will get in, right? And West is probably the biggest question mark right now.
Yeah, Regina's going to make it. Liberty's
looking
as good as in. City High is probably only needs 1 more win to get in. I think West probably needs 2. So yeah, I think all 4 of them are pretty good bets.
One thing that we touched on in the 4 downs for this week were teams that have kind of bounced back from maybe slow starts or opening week losses. I think of Williamsburg a few years ago where they might have started 0-3, and it was against 3 really, really good teams, and then they ended up making maybe the title game or semifinals that year. And we discussed some of the teams that have really bounced back. Linder, JJ, you both mentioned West Delaware, and of course they got a big test with Waller. City High has rifled off 5 wins in a row. So has Sigourney Keota after a shellacking by PCM, a really good PCM team. Nathan Ford mentioned how Mid-Prairie has really bounced back from a tough regular season schedule. What do you guys kind of attribute it to those teams? Is it just the fact that, they did open up with tough teams? You mentioned North Fayette Valley's clinched a playoff berth, and they got beat up in the opening week against Independence. But we see these teams that have kind of grown from that early loss or losses to be hot teams right now during the season.
Yeah, and you touched on that a little bit. I think the thing that those teams have in common is they had the courage to play up.
Yeah,
at least 1 or 2, maybe 3 non-district games, and I think that's starting to pay off now.
I agree, Jeff. That's it's not going to hurt you, right? So
no, because there's no RPI in the small, from 2A on down. So
just from from a mental capacity, perhaps, or getting like Sigourney, getting shellacked. You do have to get yourself back up off the ground, so to speak.
Yeah.
So.
And one thing you really have to have a good perspective, and as a coach, you have to relay that because confidence can get hit. You got to make sure you have guys that are physically able to play against those teams because, we've seen how injuries could take a toll. So kudos to those programs. And they're really, they show that you don't have to have wins to be able to make gains, right?
Yep.
Right.
So.
Oh, JJ, let's play a game.
I'm on the other end of this.
Yes.
I'm gonna do so terrible.
All right. So I did four things here. It's who's got more?
Okay.
Essentially. So we'll start out with a straightforward one. All right.
Okay.
Best point differential between these three teams: Northeast Goose Lake, Linn-Mar, and Starmont. And they're all pretty close together. Well, that's your only hint. So,
you want me to go first, Lindy, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So,
Starmont, Northeast, and Linn-Mar.
I know Linn-Mar's had a couple tough ones, or close ones. Where they had Cedar Falls. Starmont has a loss. Linn-Mar has a loss. That goes against them. I think Northeast Goose Lake is unbeaten. And I thought they had a really blowout. Didn't they have a player score like 5 touchdowns or something in the game? I'm going to go with Northeast.
All right, Lindy.
I'm going to go Starmont just because of some of the teams they played early. I know. I'm just plus the fact that they haven't given up any points hardly. I'll go Starmont.
All right, and you guys are right. Linn-Mar and Starmont have 1 loss each. Northeast is undefeated. So the point differentials are: Northeast Goose Lake is plus 22.0, Linn-Mar plus 22.2, and Starmont plus 23.0.
Wow.
So that's as close as you can get.
Nice. Right? Dang it.
Feels crappy to be on the other end, doesn't it?
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
All right, now we get a little more goofy.
All right. Maybe that
here
works
we
in
go.
my favor, goofy.
Who has more? Jackson Nichols Lindsay of Iowa City High kickoff touchbacks.
Oh, geez.
He's got a lot of them, I think.
Caden Burr of Bettendorf longest field goal.
Ooh.
Or Tate Wood of Independence solo tackles. So kickoff touchbacks for Nichols Lindsay, longest field goal, Caden Burr of Bettendorf, solo tackles, Tate Wood of Indy.
I go first?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'll go with the area kid. I'll go with Wood.
Okay.
I'll go with Wood too.
Okay. All right. Caden Burr of Bettendorf has a long field goal this season of 57.
Jeez.
57.
Wow.
Jackson Nichols Lindsay of City High has 58 kickoff touchbacks. That's impressive.
Knew that was.
And you have both nailed it. Solo tackles, Tate Wood of Indy has 60. So very close, right?
Wow.
Very close.
Yeah. 60 solo tackles through 6 weeks. 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Of course, he's been a tackling machine, hasn't he?
Well, kickoff touchbacks. Holy cow.
Yeah, right?
All right. So here we go again. Kind of a goofy one, but also yet kind of straightforward. Who has more? Rushing attempts for Central City's Matthew Klosterman. Passing attempts by Lansing Keys' Dalton Mutterman, both A-player, of course. Mm-hmm. Or interception return yards by Northland's Cale Benish.
Okay. So, all right. So I go first here.
Yep.
I know Mutterman, or not Mutterman, Klosterman ranks among the state leaders in touchdowns, but it was passing attempts or rush
attempts for Klosterman, pass
Okay.
attempts for Mutterman, or interception return yards for Benish.
And I know Benish has returned 2 interceptions for touchdowns. I'll go with Benish.
Okay.
That's probably what I would have said too, but I'll be contrarian. Oh boy. Yeah, I think it's Spanish too, but I'll say passing attempts for Mutterman. I know they've been throwing a lot.
All right. Rushing attempts from Matthew Klosterman is 160. Passing attempts for Dalton Mutterman of Key, 161. Interception return yards for Cale Benish, 163.
Wow.
So that's
really close.
That's very close. Very close. All right. Now this one's just straightforward. The superior passer rating.
Oh, boy.
I'll give you 3 quarterbacks. Who has the best passer rating? Grant Hooker of Williamsburg, Jack Wallace of Iowa City West, or Vernon Benda of Cedar Rapids Jefferson? And that can I think that's what
a lot of that is so that's a lot on percentage touchdowns, not many INTs. I know Hooker's thrown a lot of touchdown passes to
Heitman.
Yeah, to Heitman. I'll go that direction.
Who's that? Grant Hooker?
Yeah.
Okay. Bilchie?
For some reason, I was thinking Benda had a decent QB rating. He does a good job of managing the game.
Yeah.
He's got a nice target with 9 now. Wallace lets it fly because he can. I'm going to go with Benda just because I bet you it's more controlled and fewer mistakes and stuff like that, even though the numbers aren't as gaudy.
All right, passer rating. Jack Wallace, 201.3.
Wow.
Vernon Benda, 207.2. Grant Hooker, 242.6.
Oh, wow.
87 of 129, 29 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So that's getting it done. And I didn't do all the total research, but I got to think that's pretty close. It's got to lead the state, I would think. 240.
I wonder what's Mansky from Algona, because he's got, I think, 16 touchdowns without a pick. You got that?
I got
at your fingertips.
Yep, I got it right here. You guys talk amongst yourselves here for a second while I.
Lindy, do you know how to factor or figure out QB rating? Is there a max?
Well, I think there is in the pros. That I think high school uses the same quarterback rating that there is in college. So, I mean, perfection would be every pass being a 99-yard touchdown throw. But, I don't think there's a perfect like there is in the pros.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'll answer that question for you first. Passer ratings compiled of 4 primary stats: completions, percentage, touchdown passes, interceptions per attempt, and average gain per attempt.
So you have to throw 99-yard touchdown passes every time to have a perfect rating.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. I just had it here. Alex Mansky from Algona, 67 and 97, 1,295 yards, 16 touchdowns, no interceptions, passer rating of 235.6.
Okay.
So Hooker actually
even higher than that.
Yeah, Hooker is higher than that. Mansky's he's going. Is he going to Iowa State?
Get me water.
Yeah, Iowa State.
Okay. So yeah, I guess you're doing work when you have a better passer rating than somebody that's going big time D1. So
yeah. 29 to 1, or I'm sorry, 29 touchdown passes has to really
really elevate that. Yeah, for sure. Right. And I was looking at, different QB ratings, and Vernon Bennett was the one that really surprised me, I guess, a little bit. But like Pilch, like you said, like you think of it, he's they've got he's got targets to hit. And he's hit them.
Yep. And
no doubt about it.
I don't think there are not a lot of risky passes.
Yeah. Well, unless you're throwing the LJ deep down the field, then that's not really risky either. It's just like,
right.
All right, go get them.
Yeah. He kind of neutralizes the risk factor there, doesn't he?
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I hope you enjoyed being on the other end of that, Kate.
Yeah, that was good.
Hey, I think I got 2 right.
You did.
500 matches my blood sugar levels.
So we already talked about where we're all going to be this week. Boy, any closing thoughts before we sign this puppy off?
Lindy, do you want to run down the rankings or the RPI that you, or at least just make mention that it's posted at the Gazette.com?
Yeah, it is. Let me find. It won't be hard to find here. All right. We'll just kind of hit the high points here. Bettendorf's still number 1 in Class 5A. Liberty's at number 2. The other unbeaten in the state, Ottumwa, is at 6. Eastern Iowa teams, Liberty at 2, Waterloo West 3, PV 5, Ottumwa 6, Linmar at 8, and City High at 9. So if the playoffs started today, Linmar would host City High in an 8-9 game, which would be a lot of fun. And then it's a lot of 2-loss Central Iowa teams in the 10 to 16 range. Iowa City West is knocking on the door at 18. 4A, Decorah is number 2. Western Dubuque 7, Xavier 8, Clear Creek 10, North Scott 15. 3A, Algona is number 1, Wallart's 4, Solon 7, Williamsburg 8. So one of those is going to rise a little bit, and one of them is going to take a little bit of a fall this week. Mount Vernon's 10, West Delaware 11, Independence 13. Washington, a team we haven't talked about at all this year. Washington, Iowa's sitting 5-1, and they're at number 12. Benton Community's at 16, so they'd be the last team in right now if the playoffs were today. Not much change in the IHSAA rankings. West Lyons still number 1 in 2A. Grundy Center in 1A, West Hancock in A, and Lennox is the top-ranked team in 8-player.
Ottumwa and Waukee Northwest on Friday night. This will be by far Ottumwa's biggest test. So,
Sure.
And when teams start to lose and their strength of schedule is weak, they take a dive. We found that out with Jefferson here in the last 2 weeks. This time 2 weeks ago they were at number 3, and now they're all the way down to 21. So they're trying to kind of pick up the pieces and move back forward.
Yep.
So 2 things from our weekly poll that I thought was interesting. Obviously, with Solon's loss, there's a new number 1 in 3A, and that's Algona. Algona and Williamsburg splitting first place votes 3-3 there, but Algona the new number 1. And then in Class A, West Hancock is the new number 1 there. Moving ahead at Guthrie Center, ACGC, both have 3 first place votes, but Guthrie Center was our number 1 last week and didn't lose, and passed by West Hancock. So interesting.
ACGC's had trouble stopping teams. Their defensive average is very good.
So giving up some points and stuff. And of course, West Hancock's West Hancock. So
that's right.
Yeah, and
they're right there every year, it seems like.
Yeah, West Hancock, Grundy Center, those are kind of the A and 1A teams that always seem to rise to the top.
Yeah, Grundy Center plays Alburnett this week, so that'll be a game just to kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah, Alburnett's had a nice year.
Very much.
So, All right. Well, I think we'll call it a wrap for JJ, for KJ, and for me. Thanks for joining, and we'll do this again in 7 days.